interesting topic that comes up, I guess, periodically here on that end. We now have 5 members of the council here, so you can be able to conduct a strategic planning meeting, so that's a good thing. And I was alerted at least that we were going to have a Chairwoman Hill was going to be absent, and then also Vice Chair Knoll is absent. And then I went to section 8.3 of your charter, which says in the event that someone is not here to be the chair or vice chair, then y'all can hold a special election at the beginning of a meeting in order to be able to conduct that to occur. That is also what is the rules of procedure that y'all have adopted under Robert's Rules of Procedure. And I had to get my earmarked section up to be able to find all that, but under 4711 of that rule, that allows that to occur. And so at this point in time, you can't really designate if someone's knowing that they're going to be absent from a meeting. They can't authorize another person to be the chair in advance of that meeting, but it has to occur at the meeting that you're in now. So at this point in time, if anyone would like to make a motion here for who would be the chair pro tem of this meeting, then we can start.
I like the motion for, we discussed. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Chip Henderson as our pro tem for this meeting and for our council meeting at 3:30.
3:30.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
All right.
All right, we got it going.
Thank you, council, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
We've got a couple of items on the agenda for this afternoon that we need to take a look at. First thing we need to do, I guess, is have the approval of the minutes from our last meeting. So could I have a motion on the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, with no objections, those meetings will stand as recorded. Couple of presentations this afternoon. One is our Rain Smart presentation. Jeremy, they got you listed, but I think Maria's gonna take this, or, oh, who? Haley. Okay. All right, and then we have a passenger rail initiative, but I don't see Ellis. Is he still coming?
He is.
He's in the,
Okay,
he's in the conference.
okay,
He's in the chamber.
all right, perfect. So at this time, Haley, if you'd like to come up and join us, and give us the Rain Smart, program presentation.
Absolutely. Well, firstly, thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to tell you more about this environmental initiative that is run through the Stormwater Division. It is funded by our stormwater fee. My name is Haley Hamblin, and like I say, I work with the Stormwater Division. My title is a water quality specialist, but my main responsibility is managing our Rain Smart Rewards program. And
I'm Isabel. I work for Waterways, so we assist Chattanooga with the Rain Smart program. I've been working for Waterways for over a year, and I'm the watershed project coordinator. So I coordinate a lot of programs, but Rain Smart Yards is one of them.
So in this presentation, we'll introduce you to the program, kind of tell you why it was created, its impact that we're seeing, as well as some improvements to the program that Isabel and I have made, and some tools we've developed in our collaboration with code enforcement. Without further ado, so what is the point of Rain Smart? Well, the main point is to reduce stormwater runoff and keep pollutants from our waterways. So that's protecting public health and water quality, but also very important to us is providing education and public engagement offerings as well. So Rain Smart is actually mandated by our MS4 permit. This permit requires that we have an incentive program. It requires that we reduce stormwater runoff with this program, as well as provide, public education and those incentives. But as you'll notice, minimizing landscaping related pollutants such as, fertilizers and herbicides and things of that nature from entering our waterways is part of the permit. So also riparian stream cleanups, riparian plantings, which are mostly done through Isabel's program, Rain Smart Yards. So these are all things that are listed in the permit that we are required to meet, and Rain Smart helps us do that. So we have gray infrastructure. Everybody's very familiar with gray infrastructure. This takes storm water from one place and takes it to another. Oftentimes it's going straight into the river, or maybe it's going to a moccasin bend where it's then treated and released. But green infrastructure, on the other hand, its purpose is to infiltrate storm water where it lands, keeping that water out of our storm system, which is fabulous. In addition to that, I mean, this is also disaster prevention and flood preparedness. So the more native plants that we get in the ground, the more infiltration we have, the better prepared we are for heavy rain events. And so, we believe that stormwater management needs to extend beyond public lands. We simply do not have enough space to manage the stormwater we need to in order to keep our waterways clean. So by incentivizing green infrastructure and the planting of native plants on residential property, we get much more area that we're able to have a massive impact on. So, you know, this Doug Tallamy quote kind of just gives you the scale of that. But you know, Natural Resources Division's work on our public lands really inspires our citizens, and they really want to help be part of a solution, and RainSmart gives them the tools and the guidance and the education and the resources in order to be able to be part of a solution. So, if you've never seen native plant roots before, they can be up to 15 feet long. That's pretty amazing. On this far side here, you'll see this is turf circled in red. Turf grass only has about 2 to 4 inches of depth. So when you pour water on a lawn, it's really more like pouring water on a brick. Whereas when you pour water on a native vegetated area, you have all of this porosity that's created by those root systems. That means more infiltration, it becomes a sponge. In addition, it filters pollutants and it absorbs excess nutrients, which is one pollutant that we do find in our waterways. Of course, it reduces erosion, and siltation is the #1 pollutant in Tennessee waterways. 60% of Tennessee waterways are deemed impaired under the Clean Water Act. So it also, you know, cools urban environments, so you get increased health outcomes, you know, beneficial health outcomes. We also see that it sequesters carbon emissions. It's huge for a city like Chattanooga. We're kind of in this bowl. And also it requires no fertilizer. Actually, native plants don't need it because they're adapted to live here, and they require no mowing. You have reduced maintenance. You might do cutbacks maybe once or twice a year with native plants, but no mowing is required, no fertilizer, so that's less pollutants that are even entering the environment to begin with. So, all good things. And here's just another visualization so you can kind of see the scale of these in perspective with a person. So here on this right-hand side, you'll see these are ornamental grasses and their root system. Well, this isn't lawn grass. This is a common, you know, non-native ornamental plant that we see often. And it's not doing much because those root systems don't reach far enough down to have the same impact as something like a bluestem would. It's pretty amazing. So, just wanted to point this out. We do not, because of all of the reasons I just stated, lawn grass doesn't really have any ecological benefits. It, again, is a non-native, actually invasive species that takes away habitat from native plants. So we do not accept lawn grass overgrown as a, you know, restorative effort. But on the right side, you will see intentionally planted native grasses. And these we do love because they provide so much benefit to us, and they can be planted in contexts that look very ornamental, but it's all about the right plant in the right place, and that's what we're doing with RainSmart, is we're giving homeowners that guidance, but this is what we want to see more of, and maybe, you know, we can scale it back if we need to, but we'd love to see this. And so I just want to point this out. Again, we see a lot of ornamental grasses that are planted, and a lot of them are invasive species, but we're not doing anything to manage those. So those are spreading not only throughout residential areas, but also wildland areas, reducing habitat for native species. So if we're not, you know, actively managing invasive species on residential property, we don't have biodiversity of native plants in wild areas. It just doesn't happen that way. But there are beautiful native grasses that we can switch, you know, so we're constantly, you know, encouraging homeowners to replace their non-native invasive plants with native plants. So there's always a one-to-one kind of alternative, and we can find what plant works best where, how we can make those beautiful in a similar context that you would see maybe a pampas grass. And if you're unaware, you might even have some of these in your yard. Hopefully you didn't plant them. But, you know, these are ones that we see spreading all across Chattanooga. A lot of these are still available in the nursery trade. Lucky for us, you know, Tennessee, we're one of the only states that has outlawed the sale of privet. But, you know, things like Nandina, if you're hiking on Lookout Mountain, you're gonna see this everywhere. And it's planted in people's yards. And let me just say, our current overgrowth code says that we should be managing noxious weeds, that they should be prohibited. And by definition, that the Tennessee Department of Agriculture uses, they kind of defer to the Tennessee Invasive Plant Council, which classifies noxious weeds as non-native invasive species. So maybe we should just take a look at it. We can keep going. So because we've grown pretty unfamiliar with native plants, with kind of the importing of, you know, urban landscaping, there's a lot of misconceptions that float around about native plants. So we thought we might debunk some of those myths while we're here. So one we hear all the time is, what about snakes? What about mice and things like that? Well, if we have balanced ecosystems, we're going to actually encourage predation of these pest animals, right? And of course, any landscape can become unruly. Look just a couple slides back at the overgrown lawn, you know. Any landscape can be improperly maintained, so native plants, they can be actually cultivated in a way that is still very aesthetic, but also ecologically functional. We love that. And attracting mosquitoes. Are we creating environments for mosquitoes, particularly with our rain garden projects? And the answer is no. Mosquitoes take about 5 days to actually pupate, you know, become the whole obnoxious animal they are. And native plants, as we've seen, they encourage the infiltration of stormwater. So these areas that we see standing water, we can actually create those into assets that reduce the amount of mosquitoes that we have. So, are there any other misconceptions that you guys hear around that we can address?
What about armadillos?
Armadillos, did you know they're actually not, yeah, they're not native.
They're in my backyard.
Yeah, they're,
Wow.
because, you know, maybe some shifting temperatures, those armadillos are moving in to our area, but didn't you hear that the alligators in Tennessee now too? So what are we gonna do about that? Not sure. What? Yeah, over in West Tennessee, so we're good now, but I don't know what to say about the armadillos, but I can ask some wildlife management friends about that.
They like the coyotes.
All right, so, and we'll get to the meat of the thing, which is the Rain Smart Rewards program. So in past times, it's been a little bit tricky for people to kind of understand how this all shakes out between waterways and the city's involvement. So on the one arm of it, we have a set of rebate programs. And so the way that we describe these are project tracks. So you have one of 4, or you can do more than one. And those are going to be rain gardens, which is a capture and infiltration of stormwater using native plants. Rain barrels, which we're capturing and reusing stormwater, maybe for a vegetable garden or passive irrigation of a front flower bed. Supportscapes, that's going to be a dense planting of native plants, so that's increasing biodiversity, stabilizing eroding soil, but most importantly, replacing invasive plants. And stream bank repair is one that we have just added to our series of project tracks, and that's because we did just see that incredible amount of rainfall, and we figured that the more repair that we can do of the vegetation on our stream banks, the better prepared we are for a Helene level event. And then on the other arm of it, we have Isabel's piece of the pie, Waterways. They do the stormwater fee discount program, which is incredibly beneficial for our residents. Basically, they give a survey of properties and rate them from, you know, bronze to gold on their level of sustainable landscape maintenance. And so based on that, you'll receive 25 to 75% off of your stormwater fee, never 100%, because there's never perfect. So. All right, and this I think is a great example of the power of our Supportscapes program. This is Mississippi Ave. On the right-hand side, you'll see this really beautiful, densely planted front yard. This slope aspect is actually the same nearabouts as the one on the left. But the difference that you'll see is that on the left-hand side, you have sedimentation, you know, all of that stormwater runoff is just going down the hill, completely unobstructed, fast as can be, taking all of that sediment with it, and it's dumping it into the street and the sidewalk. I've seen it for myself. And on the other hand, you have this landscape that's not only feeding pollinators, it's pleasing to the community because in certain seasons, wow, it's incredible, the blooms. But also, you know, slowing storm water, absorbing storm water, holding in that slope. And this property owner, they installed this, and then several years later, they put the house up for sale. And they said that it actually was one of the biggest selling points about the house for the new homeowner. And the new homeowner has started doing the Rain Smart program as well, and has continued to employ the same native plant expert to maintain that landscape. So just a note too, this is driving jobs in the city of Chattanooga. The more people do this, the more specialized knowledge that we need to have, and those folks are finding, you know, more and more opportunities through the Rain Smart program and people wanting to participate in this program. So our rain garden program has a massive impact. Imagine over at Heritage Park, do you guys remember how it used to just be flooded out behind the dog park, and they, you know, replanted, restored that environment? Not only did amazing plants come up, but now you don't have just a muddy field that's completely unusable. We're turning unusable areas into community assets. You know, we're directing the stormwater typically through people's downspouts, but it could be any impervious surface, whether it be the roof, driveway, sidewalk, and we are diverting that into these shallow basins that are planted with native plants, and they're designed to infiltrate within 48 hours, so well before any mosquitoes could have an effect, you know? So we really love that program. And as of now, we're capturing just over 21,000 gallons of stormwater last time we calculated. That's in a 1-inch rain event, and some of these rain gardens, you know, are dug deeper, so we might even be having a greater impact than we know. But ultimately, we have over 95 native gardens that have been planted, and I mean, they all are unique and beautiful, and they bring a lot of happiness to the homeowners and the surrounding community. But here's what you're really gonna wanna see. So, 21,000 gallons of stormwater. If the city wanted to infiltrate 21,000 gallons of stormwater, it would need about 28,000 cubic feet, and each of those cubic feet is going to cost us about $50 because we need engineers, we need the folks to do it, we have to have those contractors. But ultimately, we have that impact for $35,000 on residential property. That means that city staff doesn't have to maintain it. We already have a very overwhelmed natural resources division. But it also means that there's more impact that we can have. Like we said, public land is not enough to have the impact needed to make a meaningful difference.
So on to you. Thank you. Yes, and so Waterways manages the stormwater fee discount. So this is a certification program, like Haley was saying, where we certify yards based on their progress and management of stormwater. And if you don't know who Waterways is, we are a local nonprofit here in Chattanooga. We have been around for about 22 years now. We make positive impacts on watershed health throughout the southeastern United States and the Caribbean Basin. And our mission, just so you guys are aware, our mission is to lead community action to restore waterways and protect the local ecosystems on which we all depend. So a big part of our work is getting the community involved, educating people, and seeing big impacts. And so the Rain Smart Yards program first began in about 2018, 2017, and we worked closely with Chattanooga since then and collaborated with them to certify yards so we could look at the whole yard, and so there was a larger impact and protection of water quality. And this was really a program that started so we could help municipalities reach their MS4 permit requirements. And we don't only provide this program in the city of Chattanooga, but also throughout Hamilton County. We partner with Hamilton County. Incentives, reimbursements are now given in Red Bank, and we're working with the town of Signal Mountain as well. So we want to provide benefits to everyone, and these are free resources that residents have. Move on. And so, yeah, really the idea is to involve as many properties as possible, and as property owners as possible, so in the community, so we can have a greater impact on stormwater retention and stormwater runoff, and reducing sewer overflows. Skipped a slide, I think. But Waterways bases the certification process on a whole systems approach, or the whole yard. So this ensures the prevention of a host of non-point source pollution from entering our waterways, and it also increases ecological benefits. And our survey process is inspired by the Tennessee Department of Agriculture, TDEC, TWRA, TVA, TDOT, and these are recommendations for sustainable residential stormwater management. And like Haley said, we have a like a tiered system of stormwater fee discounts. So depending on how involved the property owner wants to be, they can manage stormwater from a 25% off discount up to a 75% off. And so that also just ensures everyone can participate, and also gives kind of a goal for people to work towards. And then Waterways offers free workshops to the community. So this is that education piece that helps MS4s meet that, meet their permit requirements. And yeah, this is just to show that the community is engaged in the program. We actually surveyed Mayor Tim Kelly's property. He did not pass the certification, but he's working on it. Oh my goodness. So yeah, does anyone have any questions?
All right, Councilman Elliott? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're not quite done with the PowerPoint, but
Oh, you're,
questions so far.
oh,
Finish
Well,
your
if you-
presentation.
Okay, just finish it. Okay.
if you open it up to questions, we may not get back to them. Let's finish
One more
the,
leg of this journey.
let's finish
do
the
it.
presentation, then we'll take
All
questions.
right, and I just wanted to throw this on up here so you can see, these are all local organizations and collaborative partnerships that we already have. So clearly, resource management and restoration is highly desired in Chattanooga. I mean, it's one of the selling points for people to move here. Almost all of the outdoor organizations do stream cleanups, Tennessee River Rescue and all of that. So we should really lean on our community to be doing this work. And of course, these programs, these incentive programs for green infrastructure incentivizing are not uncommon. They're extremely common nationwide. And just a little brag on the Stormwater Division here in the city of Chattanooga, we have been called kind of the cutting edge of our industry. And when we gave a similar presentation, a little bit different, about the Rain Smart program at the CESWA conference, which is a regional stormwater professionals conference, it was the highest rated presentation, and we were asked back for an encore so more people could be inspired by the program that we have. So I think it should just be noted that what we do in our division is very celebrated, and we're very proud of the work we do. Also, we've done quite a bit of work to guide homeowners with that right plant, right place kind of idea, because we too want to see Chattanooga be an aesthetic beauty, but we also really want to prioritize ecological function. So these are cues to care that a homeowner is educated on before they install their project. And this has kind of guided us in how we were thinking about maybe some property maintenance guidelines that we could instate. So why don't we talk about that a little bit? Oh, yes, these are 3 of our rain gardens that meet those cues to care beautifully. I mean, this one's full of water doing its job right now with these deep-rooted sedges, and I mean, they've got curb appeal. They're just beautiful. All right, so these Rain Smart property maintenance requirements, they didn't exist until Isabel and I stepped into this program, and so we have worked on kind of figuring out what is the baseline? What is going to be our aesthetic standard across Chattanooga, and how do we make it more clear? So this is what we've come up with. We wanted to identify non-native lawn grass as not being able to exceed 10 inches in height, which is what is already stated in our code, but it says overgrowth, right, which is not technically a scientific word. So we wanted to just make it clear so everybody understood what the intention was and what the expectation was. So, native planted areas, they need to have a clear border around them that can be satisfied with either, we don't want to make this inaccessible to homeowners. Stone borders can be very expensive, so if it's fallen logs on your property that you can cut to size, we'll accept that. It could be bricks, could be stone, it could be a mowed border or a weed whacked border. Something that shows the area is defined and intentional is what we are looking for. And any native, we really prioritize visibility in our installation, so we say that any native plants that are planted within 2 feet of a roadway or a public sidewalk, they need to be maintained at no taller than 10 inches. So that kind of, have you ever walked down a sidewalk and the zinnias are just exploding and falling onto you? We want to avoid that. And also we have a Rain Smart stewardship guide that guides the homeowner through seasonal maintenance of their landscape also, and applies the cues to care as well. And just so y'all are aware, this is in our homeowner's agreement. And so every homeowner has to sign a maintenance agreement that says they have to maintain it for 5 years at a minimum. And so they acknowledge that they understand these requirements. Now, if there is an issue or a complaint, we have worked with code enforcement to create this system, this procedure. So, say a Rain Smart yard received a complaint, that code enforcement officer, as is their job, is going to go out to that site and do that initial inspection. Then that code enforcement officer, in the case that it is a Rain Smart yard, will contact Isabel. If it is a rain garden, supportscape, stream bank restoration, rebate project, they will contact me. And then one of us, whichever respective person, we will go out and inspect that property ourselves, because we understand that we might know native plants better than other folks, so we want to assist in that way. And then we're going to actually consult with the homeowner and code enforcement. We're going to take notes down of whether or not we think they're in compliance, and give that homeowner guidance of what maintenance needs to be done to get back into compliance. And so the homeowner and code enforcement are aware of what we prescribe. And then that homeowner is notified that they have 10 days to get back into compliance, at which time code enforcement will go back out to the site and it will be determined whether or not they are in compliance. If they are not in compliance, they will receive a formal violation, such as anyone would, and their stormwater fee discount will be suspended in the case that they are receiving one, and they're removed from the program. So that's how that works. I'm going to bring this up one more time because I think, since I have your attention, I would really like us to think about this together. This is our current overgrowth code. And so homeowners have in the past been very confused about what maintenance needs to occur with their native plantings to be in compliance, because is a native plant overgrowth, is it noxious weed? We should define these things. Just so we can also prioritize, we want to prioritize aesthetic quality, but we really need to prioritize ecological function in addition to that. So we'll just give you a note. All right, and so with all these improvements that we've done, we also wanted to kind of reach out to code enforcement and be as helpful as we could possibly be, and we're still in very close collaboration with them. But we developed, with the help of Emma, we have developed a GIS map that kind of tracks all of these properties across Chattanooga. It identifies what kind of practice is in their yard. Is it a rain garden? Is it a Rain Smart yard? What do they have? And we plot that on a map, but also we're tracking compliance. If that property is active or inactive, are they receiving a stormwater fee, discount, and things of that nature. And so this includes council districts, it includes watersheds. So not only is it a fantastic tool for code enforcement and us to be able to communicate visually like this, but also we can see where our impact is happening and we can aim to kind of create more dense practices in other areas that might not be utilizing the program to the fullest, and see how we might be able to incentivize them or give them more resources so they're able to. Yeah, we also do on-site education, so we'll go out to properties from time to time with code enforcement officers and kind of discuss what is going on in that landscape. We share ample resources with them. We've given them trainings on apps they can use to identify plants in the field, as well as just a wealth of native plant and invasive plant information that they can view. And we have offered, of course, anytime they would like to have us there, we will come and we will do public engagement offerings right at Midtown with them. And we've developed some new educational signage and door hangers so we can increase neighborhood awareness. So, you know, if you see somebody that's killing their grass in their front yard, you're probably thinking, what is going on there? So these door hangers kind of notify the most nearby neighbors to let them know that this is a city authorized restoration area, and what that all means, and giving them a call to action. Hey, you can also participate in this program.
Hey, how many more slides do we have? We do have,
How many?
we do have another presentation after this. Okay.
I will be snappy.
All right.
All right, and here's the end. So, just as a conclusion, this program has so many benefits for our community, you know, improved ecosystem health, flood reduction, disaster mitigation, most importantly, saving taxpayer dollars, I know we all love that, and easing pressure on an overwhelmed sewer system. So, that's how we would like to leave it.
All right.
Thank you so much, I really appreciate the time.
Councilman Harvey, I think you had a question, and then maybe Councilman Clark?
Yeah, thanks for being here. If you've been out towards my district, you've noticed 2 behemoth structures being built on I-75.
Yes.
Water storage
Yes.
tanks, so I think this is incredibly important, so we can cut down on what happened just a few months ago with the flooding on I-24. So if I, as a resident of Chattanooga, want to participate, how do I get started, so I don't plant a bunch of kudzu in my flower beds?
Sure, sure. So, I mean, the first thing you're gonna do is you are going to fill out an online application.
Okay.
We have marketing materials all over town. You might walk up to a sign, hit that QR code, takes you to our website, apply now. It's gonna ask you a series of questions. What programs do you wanna participate in? What are your goals? Do you have any ideas in mind for your landscape? Then you will schedule a site visit with myself, and I will come out there and give you personalized consultation and advice on what's the right plant for the right place, what
Okay.
are your stormwater, you know, issues that we can address with native plants, and kind of set you on the right track to implementing something that is ecologically functional as well as aesthetically pleasing.
So just RainSmart website, is that rainsmart.com? What's the website?
I wish that it had a shorter QR code.
Okay.
You go
But
to
I
Chattanooga
have
and put in Rain Smart
Yes.
in the
Okay.
search field.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
it'll take you to
have
the page.
some
Yeah.
materials I will pass out that will have that QR code on it.
Okay,
So,
all right.
yes.
And you'll
Cool.
find the Rain Smart Yards resource on that page as well.
Yes,
Okay,
we
awesome.
like to package it as one.
Okay. Also, small shout out. I played my bluegrass band. I play banjo. I play at the Waterways fundraiser every year. So
What's your band?
yeah, it's Mountain Cove Bluegrass Band. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, you were great.
Tyler's my buddy. I love him.
small world. Okay, I'm good.
Councilman Clark?
Thanks.
Quick question, could you go back to the enforcement slide? I don't know
Yes.
who's operating the slide, is that you? My question is that how many times, could you pull that door up? I am so distracted, thank you. How many times can a Rain Smart certified program go in and out of compliance before they're permanently kicked out of the program?
We're thinking 3 times.
Okay,
3
is that
strikes are out.
specified in the maintenance guide that y'all sent out? I think you said there was like a memo or some kind of guide that you all sent out?
Yes, in our procedural form, it is there. We haven't shown this procedure to the public, but if you would suggest it, I mean, we're happy to.
I'm suggesting it.
Okay,
So if they go in and out of compliance one time, there's an inspection and then it's a repetitive process. And they're not in compliance, is there current policy in your guidelines that permanently removes them out of the program? And if it's not, can you adopt that?
it has been adopted
Okay.
internally. It's not something that we have kind of put out into the public for them to know, but we can let them know for sure.
I would hope. So if there's a
Yes.
guide that goes out that says if you're not in compliance, that is sent out to the people who are applying for, is that correct? Okay. I would suggest that be in there so that they're aware that this is not like a cycle, like
Sure.
get your yard
Yeah.
Sure.
in compliance. Quick question, MS4 per,
Councilman Clark, so we wanted
Yes.
to get this in front of council before we pushed any of that information out,
sure.
to make sure that we were on line with everybody here, and then we were gonna push everything to the public on this.
Sure, I understand that.
Okay.
MS4 permit, could you explain very in short the amount of time that we have left? I know the presentation will be almost 25 minutes. Explain to us, I'm not a fan of acronyms,
Oh,
and
sure.
most of us are new.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. I have a
so-
stormwater veteran here that can probably sum it up real quick for you.
Could you explain what the permit is and what the requirements are as far as, does it specifically name Rain Smart program as a requirement to meet that permit requirement?
Incentive programs that help find with financial incentives and education for installing green infrastructure and namely native plants is stated in the permit.
Gotcha.
Multiple times.
And explain to us what the permit is.
I can take
This
that.
is the expert.
I don't know what MS4, it sounds like
Sorry.
something out of Men in Black, so.
I'm Joshua Rogers, Water Quality Supervisor. MS4 is Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, right? EPA has the Clean Water Act. They say, states, I want you to take care of implementing the Clean Water Act. And then the states say, cities, counties, I want you to be taking care of this. And so then they write these permits for us. And there are permits for large MS4s, which are gonna be Memphis, Knoxville, Nashville, Chattanooga, TDOT, things like that. And then there are small MS4s, which are gonna be the, Signal Mountain, the small stuff like that.
Gotcha, thank you, I appreciate that. My last question, Chip, and it's in regards to the overgrowth ordinance that we currently have on the books. Could you go back to that slide?
That doesn't have the whole ordinance either.
I didn't think it did either.
Yeah, these are it's the meat of it.
Okay, so the Rain Smart program, we voted as a council to include the Rain Smart program native plants as an exception to our current 10-inch rules as far as what we consider grass, weeds, of underbrush. Is that right, Phil?
With the inclusion that those homeowners follow the property maintenance requirements.
Gotcha.
Yes.
There's really no definition currently in the ordinance about what is a noxious weed.
Right.
It does not define what is a bush, shrub, vine, or ground cover. So those are things that would need to be looked at if we're gonna make revisions to 21-136. In addition to 21-137, which is not up here, is also the provision that talks about liens that can be applied to the property and abatement that can be done if the property is maintained in a manner that is inappropriate. And that's not something regarding a discount that you get on your stormwater fees.
My issue, and I'll just, so you guys could know on the council, with the program, we did have a complaint about how the Rain Smart program in my district, which in its proper implementation, which I'm for the Rain Smart program and its ecological advantages of absorbing, I think that's amazing. I've got about 5 of my district. Some of them have implemented it quite well and meet both the aesthetically pleasing portion, because that's important, because not all of us care about this. And like me, I will never have that type of native grass a part of my landscape. I have a well manicured lawn that I like. But I don't want to knock anybody else that is for this program. However, my concern is that when we look at overgrowth, to some native plants are obnoxious in what they look like as far as their curb appeal. And I wanted to make sure that we had guidelines in place, which I'm happy to see the inspection process. Not happy that it's not spelled out what non-compliance looks like for permanent expulsion from the program. I hope you guys will, I like to see that. But my concerns, I noticed there was not a picture in there when the Rain Smart yard is not in compliance. And I have those pictures, and I'll be more than happy to share that with council, but I'm curious to see how we can make sure native plants remain aesthetically pleasing and that when we require other residents who opt out not to be a part of the program, that we're all following the same guidelines as far as what overgrowth looks like.
We're in agreement,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I just want to mention, we're both very new to these positions, and trying to get properties that have been in the program retroactively
compliance,
back
yeah.
into compliance has been very difficult.
Yeah,
So moving
understood.
forward, we're really confident that the maintenance guidelines that we've created address those things.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And I really appreciate that you all have addressed it as maintenance guidelines. I mean, that is equitable for all of the other residents in the city who have to maintain compliance. And Rain Smart people are no different, in my opinion. But I like the program. I like the indigenous species plants and the native plants that I was not privy to that maybe I do want to plant. But when you have a yard that goes out of compliance, it's not a good selling tool for your the program. And so I'm happy to know that you all have implemented those guidelines and are helping us be more educated about what native plants are. But I would like for us to go back, because I noticed this was not the slide that it was on, but there was a slide that talked about what non-native plants are. I think it was one of the rules, I can't remember what it was.
Probably
That was the slide I was referring to, but it mentioned,
Maybe.
it mentioned non-native, I thought it was part of our code.
Is it at the beginning, maybe? Yeah, or no?
You guys came loaded with slides today.
We did. We love visual.
But anyway, so I just want to make sure that the native plants, there was some language in there, and I thought I had wrote a note that I wanted us to go back and take a look at as far as native grass versus overgrown. And there was some language in there, and I thought I had wrote it down. Anyway, that's all I have. And there was another point you mentioned about the job growth stuff. Do you guys have data that supports that, like these type I would love to see that,
Certainly,
like how
yes.
environmental programs like this feed into the economic development as far as job creations. I know you mentioned that, and I was like, oh, I would love to see that data.
Yeah, we can pull our numbers of contractors that have been utilized through RainSmart, and
Okay.
I'm certain that we can find some
Gotcha.
things for other municipalities as well.
For the most part, I'm pleased with this program. I would love to see us be a little bit more stricter with inspection and code enforcement with yards that come out of compliance, and then what we do to retroactively put them into compliance.
Certainly.
And if that takes, some legislation from the council, then I think we would prefer that, so. but-
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you so
All
much.
right, thank you.
Really
Appreciate it.
appreciate you all.
Any other council person got a question, comment? Haley, I would like for you to reach out to me later. To go out to John A. Patton. We paved the parking lot out there and created a native garden, bioswale in the middle of that. My number one complaint out there is how that looks in the summertime. We need to do something to make that more aesthetically pleasing, but you can just reach out to me later for that. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank y'all so much. Thank you.
Next up is our passenger rail initiative.
Fun.
By none other than Ella Smith.
Hello. Give me a minute to plug in here, if you would, please. Hope everyone's doing okay.
You got about 20 minutes, take your time.
All right, 20. Woo, I can stretch out. Well, the long version, you say. Okay. You got it?
Here's the brochures we're talking about, that have the QR codes if y'all,
Oh,
if anyone's
okay.
curious. Thank y'all.
Okay, we'll do this. Boom, how about that? Okay. Oh, maybe. Did I err? Okay. All right. So, hi, I'm Ellis Smith. Good to see all of you.
Never met you before.
Today we're talking about passenger rail, and I wanted to give you folks an update because we've been making some progress on it. So some of this information may be familiar to you and some may be new. And feel free to jump in. This can be interactive, ask questions anytime as you go through it. So always try to give Mayor Kelly credit. This was his brainchild. He started talking to the I think we had a mayor at the time in charge of the U.S. Department of Transportation, and we thought it was a unique opportunity for the mayors of 4 cities to come together and ask for funding for this corridor between our cities, as opposed to what you normally see, which is states or other organizations do it. And we put together an application, and it was granted, and Chattanooga has been holding the clipboard, so we are the lead agency for this 4-city consortium, which is Chattanooga, Atlanta, Nashville, and Memphis. We also are partnering with the TDOT, obviously, and GDOT. We have good partners down in Georgia who we work with quite regularly. Also, Tim Andrews at the Hamilton County Railroad Authority is a great friend and partner. We also work with the MPO here. Melissa Taylor is kind of my partner in crime on that. And then, of course, Dalton, Atlanta, Nashville, and Memphis are also helping us out. And so kind of the new news here is that we are in the process of putting together a compact, a Sunbelt Atlantic Rail Compact. As we go through this process, at some point, Mayor Kelly's facing, the term limit. Almost all the mayors are involved in this. Some mayors have already termed out. Governor, we're about to lose, Governor Lee at some point. And so it's really important to have an organization that can continue to carry this effort forward. So I'll talk more about that. But we're putting folks on there who we think will be integral to keeping it moving. But let me back up first. What are we talking about? I know that I think all of you were around when we talked about rail probably 10 years ago or so, and it was this maglev thing. We're going to levitate a big old train down the median of I-75 and somehow get to Hartsfield. This is not that. That would be fine, but it would also be very expensive, extraordinarily expensive, as they found out in California when their maglev project was canceled because they spent many, many dollars and did not build any rail or stations. So what we're doing instead, we think, is a little bit more practical. We're using the existing rails that today already connect Chattanooga, Atlanta, Memphis, Nashville. There are CSX trains right now, this minute, as we speak, that are transporting stuff, people, things that you use every day between those cities. What we're proposing to do is very simple. Use that rail that we got right now already and put passenger trains on it. So if it's so simple, why haven't we already done it? Well, the reason for that is since the 70s, when a lot of these passenger routes went away. We have the Choo-Choo, which used to be our big passenger terminal. Now it's not. The freight networks have pretty much used up all of the capacity, the bandwidth, if you will, on these rail networks that used to have some trains on it. And one thing, if you've ever flown and you think, okay, it's gonna be an hour flight to Atlanta or wherever, and then that turns into like an 8-hour thing, you're not gonna be very happy about that. You're gonna tell your friends that it wasn't a good experience. You're not gonna wanna do that again if you can help it. Same with passenger rail. If it's supposed to take 2 or 3 hours to get to Nashville and you get behind some kind of a slow freight train and that turns into an 8-hour adventure, you're probably gonna take a different, it also defeats the purpose, right? Which is that passenger rail is reliable and it doesn't have to stop for traffic. So what are we doing? We're building sidings. Building sidings and double tracks. So the freight trains can move over and the faster passenger trains can pass them by. That's the whole game. That's the entire project. That's what we're working on.
What did you call it? Sidings?
You could call it sidings, you could call it double tracks. In areas where there's one track right
Just a
now,
place where they can pull over and get out of the way.
using the existing right of way, which is usually, it's already there. Normally it's much wider than they require. We would just add another set of tracks for that freight train to shunt over out of the way, and that passenger train can go on past. So that's what it's called, corridor ID. I'm trying to spare you some of the lingo here. We're not the only one. There's a bunch of other routes going on. North Carolina and Virginia are probably the best examples. North Carolina is probably 10 years ahead of us. They've just done really amazing things over there. I actually got to ride on those rails, and it was smooth and fast. They're going about 70 miles an hour. And so compared to, when you try to get out to, District 1 sometimes, and you've got all that traffic, I mean, just, doesn't matter if you're going 80 for part of it, if you're then going 5 for another part of it, right? So being able to have that consistent speed at 70 is really helpful. It's a 3-step process. We're getting ready to exit thanks to the hard work of Melissa Taylor and our contractors at WSP, which is an international engineering consortium. We're poised to enter step 2 of the program, which is really where we get into project planning. Step 1, scoping, is really putting together a business plan. How many people do we think are gonna ride? Where are they gonna wanna go? How much are they gonna wanna pay? When are they gonna wanna leave? What's the economic impact of that? Think about tourism. Think about if you've ever had the pleasure of driving to Memphis. It's quite a long drive. And you don't have the opportunity to really enjoy the beauty of Tennessee because you're probably white-knuckled on that steering wheel. But now imagine you're in a passenger train making that same trip. Maybe you're a family from, Ohio visiting Tennessee for the first time, and that is a good way to increase our sales tax revenue, right? So, sorry about that. Let's get rid of that. So, let me go back. Is it gonna work? Should we really do this? Is anybody actually gonna ride it? These are all good questions. We think yes, TDOT thinks yes. You guys have all noted that our roads are pretty crowded, both here in Chattanooga and in between our cities. Passenger rail avoids a lot of that. It's not just something that we dreamed up. Amtrak ridership is up across the nation, and it's a big benefit. Anytime you can move, anybody who took economics classes, anytime you can move people to their work more efficiently, or you can make it easier for people to go pursue leisure activities, you are creating value. You are creating economic impact, right? Yes, sir.
In that first bullet point, is it supposed to say 30% decrease in commute times, I hope?
Oh, no, increase. If all other things being equal, our state is
Oh, I see what
woefully
you're saying.
underfunded. This is without passenger rail.
Without,
This is just
okay,
looking
I
at,
got you.
looking at
Oh, yeah.
the way things currently stand.
I was
reading
thinking
it
the same
wrong.
thing.
No, it's I'm glad you flagged that. Thank you. North Carolina, as I mentioned, is doing great. 1.2 million riders in 2023. I highly recommend if you folks get the chance. If you find yourselves in North Carolina, give it a ride.
Why is that 2023? We don't have any updated data.
I haven't updated the numbers. Sorry.
That's
I'll take the demerit for that.
ancient history.
Same for Virginia. Same for Virginia. They're doing extremely well. Now, Virginia has a little bit of an advantage because they're in that DC metropolitan statistical area. So I give them but they are sort of southeast state that's pulling this off. So what would our economic impact be? Well, this is per TASER, the Tennessee Advisory Commission on Intergovernmental Relations, which is kind of the, you can call it Tennessee's kind of government accountability office or whatever. They're kind of the scorekeeper for the state. They think it would be about a $20 billion economic impact. It's also a real estate play. You see a lot of transit-oriented development. Right now, our development, again, as many of you are noting, the pain associated with development lining up along road corridors, because that's how people get to work, things like that. When you add rail as an opportunity, you have transit-oriented development around rail, so people can live farther out or in other places and then commute in to the city. They don't have to pile into Ottawa and, et cetera. So that's a helpful thing that really revitalizes a lot of these small towns. It stimulates household spending, construction jobs, and obviously you save time when you're not sitting in traffic. And the other thing I would submit to you is when you're driving, you really ought to have your hands on the steering wheel. I know everybody here does that. But when you're in a train, you can use your computer, you can use, no guilt, you can use your phone, you can get up and use the bathroom, you don't have to stop, you can grab a bite to eat. And so you're able to keep moving while being productive, or as it's pointed out to me, some people may just want to take a nap. So we are on the map. This is the proposed network from the Federal Rail Administration. You can see on the right, kind of zoom in, there's the Nashville, Chattanooga, Atlanta. I will point out that the TASER recommended sort of a two-tier system on passenger rail. So the Nashville, Chattanooga, Atlanta route is tier 1. They're saying that's the one we really need to get. Tier 2, slightly lower priority, is the Nashville to Memphis. So that's why you're not seeing that on there. Here's our corridor. You can kind of see it there going from from Memphis in the west up to Nashville and then down through Chattanooga to Atlanta and ultimately to Savannah. And it's not just that. I want to draw attention to the fact that you're not merely connecting, you're going to do this thing in legs, right? So you'll probably do Chattanooga to Atlanta or Chattanooga to Nashville first. But you're not just connecting those two cities. You're connecting, if you connect Chattanooga to Atlanta, you're connecting to the entire rail network, all up and down the eastern coast there and up to Chicago
Yeah.
and so forth. When you connect to Memphis, same thing. You're going down to New Orleans, you're going up to Chicago and all points west. So, and the other side of that coin is you're connecting all those people to us.
Alex, I've got a question.
Yes,
What
sir.
is- I can't see what is the dotted?
Those are the corridors that are currently proposed.
Proposed.
So
And
some of
then-
those corridors, if I remember this correctly, are expansions or enhancements to existing rail, and some of them are new corridors. Ours is a new corridor. And then you'll see that red line there going, that's proposed by North Carolina, and we're working with them on this. That's gonna be a high-speed rail connection from North Carolina into Atlanta that they're also working
So,
on.
but these are all proposals, like what we're looking at
The dotted lines, yeah.
in the red dotted lines.
Yeah, and that, the red line is simply to denote high speed. Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Here's a closer look at ours. We're looking at, again, these are CSX lines that already exist, but we can deviate from those if we want. We'll probably try to stick with existing right away. Frankly, it's cheaper, faster. One interesting little factoid, the line between Chattanooga and Atlanta is not owned by CSX. It's owned by the state of Georgia. And the state of Georgia, in their lease agreement with CSX, has specifically called out the fact that should passenger rail be a thing that they want to pursue, that will take precedence and priority. So, so again, a lot of great opportunities along this corridor here.
Can we get the general back?
Well, we can't talk about that.
Okay, all right.
Yes, yeah, that's part of the plan. Actually, they rode the general up here for the was it the Medal of
Medal of
Honor
Honor, yeah.
celebration, and I did ask that question, but anyway. So
Alex, would we anticipate if we had rail between Atlanta and Chattanooga, that could increase flights out of Chattanooga?
it could, because
Coming up,
for this
taking a
reason,
flight out.
it would not. If you've ever ridden the subway in New York, you have your express train and then you have your local
Yeah.
train. And as this thing, again, it's not gonna be built out in a day, but as this thing gets built out, you'll most likely have stops in places like Dalton, like Calhoun, like Murfreesboro, like Mont Eagle, right? And so those folks are gonna be able to price compare and say, okay, do I wanna shuttle into Chattanooga? Do I wanna shuttle, where do I wanna go? And they'll have a little bit more flexibility in terms of getting to our city for the airport or for anything, really. If they wanna come to the Tivoli and catch a show or whatever they wanna do.
Yep.
I put this slide in here because, part of this is, we're gonna get to a point, right now, I think the current phase is $500,000. The next phase is probably 5 million with a 10% non-federal match, which we'll be working with the 4 cities and 2 states to get. So that's, if you do the math, that's another 500,000 we'll have to raise. So again, not a lot of money comparatively. But we will start to look to the states of Georgia and Tennessee for more and more involvement. And we think it makes a lot of sense, given the state's focus on small communities, on rural communities, and connectivity, and transparency. So this is a way, if you think about a lot of these small towns that you've been through on your travels, they were probably put there by the railroad in the first place, back in the day. And when the railroad pulled out, probably didn't help things. In fact, a lot of times you still see the little rail station in the middle of town, overgrown with weeds and kudzu and English ivy, invasive species, right? And so this would be a shot in the arm for a lot of those communities, bringing people back, and enabling people to not just go from there, but also come to there.
Alex, quick question. Who will own the rail line? Like, if we're in an agreement with other cities, will Chattanooga have some ownership in this compact agreement?
We do not seek that. We will most likely be a user, so let me back up and tell me if this answers your question. Under the act that created Amtrak, the tier 1 railroads, which is CSX, BNSF, Norfolk Southern, et cetera, Canadian CN, are required to allow passenger trains to come through at a reasonable cost and without impediment. So we would be essentially, not we, but this organization we would create, and really it would probably be in latter stages led by the states,
Like a transit, we will be creating a transit authority
more or less,
for this project.
as we get into later stages,
Okay,
yeah.
I got you.
And then they would be, in essence, customers, as mandated by federal law, of CSX. And right now, what you run into is they say, well, sure, you can put a passenger train on there, but I'm not making any guarantees that it's gonna get
And
anywhere.
that's CSX.
They all say we're full, basically. And so the feds created this program, in essence, to allow the capital investment needed to basically remove that impediment.
To create passenger.
Yeah, to
On their
passenger.
tracks.
Correct.
Gotcha, thank
And that's why that's why it's mostly funded by the feds. These are capital improvements that will take place on the Tier 1 railroads, land.
Gotcha.
But will allow us then going forward to do passenger rail. So again, step one, we're on schedule here. We're coming out of step one, entering step two. In step two, we'll really be taking everything that we've collected, and we'll then be taking that to the railroads, and we'll be saying, hey, how does this match up with your network? What bottlenecks do you anticipate as a result of this? And they'll start to point to places on a map where they think, okay, well, we've got all these other trains coming in here, and so we're gonna need to widen this portion. We'll then, in design engineering, we'll start to break off those individual bottlenecks and do engineering and then finally construction to eliminate those bottlenecks. And that's the program. So again, as I mentioned, we recently met in Nashville. Mayor Kelly kindly agreed to serve as the chair of the organization for now. GDOT's part of it and TDOT, and we're still working on getting some bylaws and nonprofit, documents. Is it better to be a C3 or a C4? We're going through a little of that, but in essence, we've got the band together on this, and we're heading into step two. And so with that, I can answer more questions, or if we've exhausted the questions, I can leave you in
I think we
peace.
got one or two anyway. Of
course.
Councilman Elliott?
So Ellis, thank you for this. This
Of course.
is great. I appreciate all your hard work. I've been doing this for quite some time. So is Amtrak not the goal? Like ultimately, would Amtrak not put their trains on these rails?
I think Amtrak would make a lot of sense. Amtrak was actually part of our original submission. They've studied this line, as a matter of fact, and have, and gave us those materials so that we could submit those to the FRA, basically as a stamp of approval saying, hey, if this works, we'll run trains on it. There is, however, another outfit called Brightline as well, which runs, I think they run in Florida and they run out west a little bit as well. That's a private entity, and I don't think we'd want to, at this point, close the door on anybody. We don't know what the landscape is going to look like in a couple of years from now when we're having those discussions more in depth. But Amtrak makes a lot of sense. We talk to Amtrak every month at least, and work with them on this, and they're a natural partner. I think we don't want to close ourselves off from whatever future opportunities could emerge.
Okay. Well, thank you again. I'm serious. This is great. I'm looking forward to how this unfolds.
Especially as we're talking about expanding the airport, District 6, how the rail. Well, yeah, 5, yeah. Respectfully, yeah. And how this could be a conduit of more interstate traffic, transport. So what is the timeline on? That's the only thing I didn't see in this. Like, you said we're leaving step 1 into 2.
Yeah, it starts to get, at a certain point, it becomes funding dependent as you go, again, as I mentioned, and I say small amount of money, I mean small amount of money in regards to building stuff with railroad, massive 2-state capital intensive projects. When we're talking about $5 million, that's a drop in the bucket. You're probably getting to something that's gonna be several $100 million at a certain point, which is gonna be beyond the scope of a city like Chattanooga, or any city really, to do. So that's where it gets into needing to have more state input into the process and state control of the process, which is another great.
Which will attract more state funding.
Correct.
Like, what will we be on the
If
hook
you
for?
had all the money today, you could probably get this done in 5 to 7 years. We don't have all the money today, and we don't know who the next president is gonna be, or who the next governor is gonna be. So there's a lot of unknowns, as you go through the process. But I think if you had all the money right now, you could get it
So,
knocked
but
out.
right now, there's not a timeline because we don't have all the money.
We do not. Yeah, we're heading into step 2. We think that one's gonna be fairly simple. Again, that's a 10% match from $5 million is $500,000. So we're
Each
thinking
municipality that's a part of it?
$500,000 total. $500,000 total between 4 municipalities and 2 states. So $500,000 6 ways. So that should be a fairly light lift. We'll obviously come to you guys when we figure out the exact number and ask for our portion of that. I think the other thing to be thinking about, again, this is not a near-term worry, but at some point, we're gonna have to think about a train station and where it's gonna go. And so that's obviously gonna be more than $500,000, but how that gets funded and where that goes, and, you know, the thing about train stations is they need to be near the rail that you're actually using, and so it could be over by the airport, to your point, there's
Or
some
in
great,
District 5 where I already have
That's
a
right.
see rail, you know,
there's
the,
some great rail going down
I
there,
got trains,
just across the
I got
street.
creeks,
Plane, trains, and
planes,
automobiles.
I got it all.
So right across
Invasive
from where they're
plants.
building the new garage is where there's one potential location. You've also got just down toward your district, past the stadium, that's all CSX. The TransFlow facility down there, and then they have a yard on the west side of town. So anywhere along that line, South Broad, and then up Amnicola Highway, right? So
There's no projection as far as like when we go into step 2, like is step 2 like a 2-year process, or like is there a guesstimation?
around 2 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. So so we would know what to expect as far as, I mean,
In our discussion with the
we'll
federal
be in
government.
re-elections in 3-4 years,
Yep.
and with a new mayor, so.
In our discussions with the federal government, it's around 2 years for step 2. Now, that's probably on the long side. Again, if we're able to kind of do our jobs well, hit our marks and execute well, probably more like a year and a half. But we're trying to allow for the unknown. You know, people get sick and retire and who knows, right? So we're trying to leave a little wiggle room there. But each step, we try to look at it as building the foundation for the next step. So in step 1, we didn't have to, but we put together an economic proposal on that to show the ROI for doing this. Because now in step 2, we have to be able to go to people and say, hey, we need a little amount of money, $500,000, and there's actually an ROI with that, whether it's jobs or tourism or some combination of those things. So we're trying to think, as we're in step 2, we will be thinking about how to leverage that to get through step 3.
Councilman, raise your hand. Going forward. You want to skip Councilman?
I'm sorry.
I prefer my brother.
I'm so sorry, Frank.
The Bible says prefer
I think
your
it's
brother.
my
I'm
fault.
preferring my brother.
Councilman Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have several questions. As you know, Ellis, I am fascinated with this and would love to see this happen again in the home of the choo-choo. So the question I get when I talk to people about this is that the first question I get is, will this negatively affect the airport?
No, we talked to, again, I think one of the locations would be right across the street from the airport. I think the airport would like nothing more than to have a bunch of potential customers getting disgorged.
Absolutely.
Right across the street from them. Anytime again, I think Chattanooga has a lot of visitors, right? And our net inflows are greater than our outflows
Yeah.
here in Chattanooga. And so when you add conduits to Chattanooga and from Chattanooga, more people are gonna find it easier to come here, all
Yep.
up and down the eastern seaboard. I think the tourism company is very excited about this, thinking about, these are all new markets now. Because we're normally historically, we're a day drive destination,
Right.
right? But now when you're a day rail destination,
Yeah.
that suddenly opens up a lot of new,
Municipalities.
interesting possibilities. And so all these people, a lot of people will fly in and then drive out, or they'll take the train as kind of a novelty to see the countryside, and then they'll fly out. But I don't think there's any concern on the airports.
So that brings up another question: is how long would a trip do you think would be like from here to Atlanta? 2 hours?
The answer you dread is it depends. It depends on how many stops.
How
you
many
have.
stops? That was my next question.
So if you stop in Calhoun, Dalton, Marietta, et cetera, it could take longer. However, passenger trains are very light, and so I've done a few fact-finding trips to kind of get a sense for it, and I don't think it would probably be. I would assume it's 20%, 30% longer than if you just took a car and hit no traffic.
Right.
Because you're not, I don't know how fast you drive, but you're probably not gonna be going much faster than 60 or 70.
Right.
And people tend to drive 75, 85 on the road.
Till they get to Marietta.
Till they get to Marietta, so you start to slow down.
Yeah, then you're stuck.
But that's where the train really becomes a superior instrument. is
Absolutely.
You're not having to make, get into that stop and go traffic. So I think it'll be longer in some cases, it'll be shorter in others, depending on traffic. We also envision, as I referenced, probably an express route, a direct route, and then a local, most likely. I don't know how we'd roll that out in terms of order of operations. My guess is initially it would be a local that would stop in more places, and then once you really got the ridership up, the demand would grow for an express route direct to, you know, the Atlanta station, direct to Nashville.
Just a couple more questions. What would an anticipated fare cost a passenger?
I don't know.
Okay.
I can get that for you.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting to know. So with a longer trip, do you think the trains would offer overnight accommodations if you're going to Florida or, you know, whatever? Okay.
Yeah, this would, our anticipation is that the Amtrak, and there's another, I'm not sure if it was in there, but there's a long, it's not in here, but Amtrak has sort of it's a study, maybe it just came out recently, but long-range routes, and they would love to come down. You'll see that green line that I didn't mention that goes Atlanta, Chattanooga, then it kind of goes to the northeast, right up to Roanoke, that through Knoxville, through Bristol, and then Washington D.C. So I think you would see Amtrak add some routes there.
Okay.
That would be our anticipation. Again, they're very excited about this. This makes their network make a lot more sense than having Tennessee be kind of bifurcated the way it is currently. It's just weird that you can't go across the state of Tennessee by rail currently.
Right, exactly. 2 more questions. Is it feasible to do a train terminal, say, at the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum or
Yes.
the Choo Choo?
It is feasible. It is.
It's my district.
Those are feasible locations.
Okay.
Again, I've spoken to Tim Andrews about a number of locations. I think one of the considerations again is speed. And so you don't want to you don't want to nestle it so far back. Think about coming up from Atlanta and then having to go northeast a long distance in order to then turn around and go west again.
Right.
So I think there's some consideration, and that's first consideration. And part of why that's a consideration is we have a lot in Chattanooga, a lot of what are called at-grade crossings, which means that the rail and the road are slapped down right on top of one another. Probably drove across some to get here today. And you have to go pretty slow over those in a train because you don't want to hit anybody.
Yeah.
It costs them a lot in insurance and payouts, and obviously the loss of life and property associated with that. So one of the things that you do is you separate those grades as you go through this process. And that could be part of the corridor ID process. There are other FRA programs that we would use to do grade separations. So we would look at the number of at-grade crossings, which again, remember, they're ringing the bell, they're honking the horn as they go through there, to see what is that plays into the speed piece. If we have to do, let's say, and I'm just making this up, but if you wanted to go to the Tennessee Valley Railroad and there are 9 at-grade crossings, and so you're doing 5 miles an hour for X number of minutes, whereas another location, maybe it's just 2. And now I'm thinking, okay, 2, well, I can do that for $50 million, right? And have that done. And so that, I think that would be part of the discussion, is what's the cost of those grade separations, how many are needed?
Well, obviously, the nostalgia factor to have it back at the Choo Choo would be super cool.
I agree.
And I think that it's not my district, but I think that it could really help the Choo Choo and bring it back to life and what it used to be. But
Practically, you'd want it somewhere close to the airport though, wouldn't you?
I think it would be nice to have all the transportation clustered together. I think, we've talked to Charles Frazier about what a multimodal sort of hub would look like that would include not just rail, but also bus, that would include bike, that would include other things. We do have some challenges with Lee Highway, of course, and Airport Road getting to that location. So we probably have to do a little bit of engineering and widening on Airport Road and that intersection and everything, just to make sure that, we're not putting something like that somewhere, then it's not as accessible as we'd like for it to be.
lastly, no hush. What can we do to help?
I think right now where we're at, just your encouragement, your questions, these are great questions. Any issues that you foresee, feel free to call me anytime. And obviously, again, as I mentioned, as this goes along, the states are gonna need to take a bigger and bigger share of this. And Tennessee is well poised to do that. They have Dan Palme, who's a great guy, who runs their rail division. And that's just gonna need more and more investment from the state of Tennessee as they go along, and they've got more rails to manage. And so I think just as we speak with our, state reps about things that we think are important, just keeping that, doesn't have to be top of mind, doesn't have to be the front burner, but just making sure that they're conscious of that need, and that need is probably gonna grow.
Mr. Smith, your time has expired.
Well,
And we need to take a break before we go to our 3:30 meeting. Council, don't forget these books and Rain Smart programs are up here.
And I will need a short attorney-client session with you today, just a little bit.
Okay.
Now?
No, after
After.
when we recess. All right, we'll adjourn our strategic planning meeting and we'll see you back at 3:30.
Very good.
Get your